is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. With just 4 days to go before Election Day, Hillary Clinton's lead over Donald Trump has dwindled. That is the headline from brand new Fox polls releasing right now. Clinton's 3-point advantage in the four-way survey from just last week has, as you can see here, fallen to 2 points, and that is within the margin of error. In the head-to-head, Clinton facing Donald Trump, Clinton's 5-point lead from last week is now down to 1. As we head to the what-if scenario map, the states, red states obviously Republican, blue states Democrat, the gray states are key battlegrounds. Right now, 201 to 164 in the electoral vote. You need 270, of course, to win the presidency. As of tonight, if the election were held tonight with the Real Clear Politics average of polls in each of these states, giving the leader of that state tonight the win, Donald Trump would win in Arizona. He'd win in Nevada. He'd win in Iowa. He'd win in Ohio. He would win a close one in New Hampshire. He'd also win in North Carolina and in Georgia. Now, Hillary Clinton, as of tonight, would win in Colorado. She'd win in Wisconsin, in Michigan. She'd pull off a squeaker in Pennsylvania. She'd also win in Virginia. Now, you see Florida here. Tonight, the Real Clear Politics average of polls in Florida has Hillary Clinton up 1.2%. If you give Florida to the Democrats, Hillary Clinton is the next president, 298 to 240. Now, if the trend continues and Republicans pick up momentum, and Donald Trump picks up momentum in Florida, and you change Florida to Donald Trump's state, look at the numbers, 269 to 269. No one gets to the 270 needed to be president. So this race then heads to the U.S. House of Representatives to be decided who will be the next president of the United States. The nominees are, for the most part, going after high population, big electoral vote states in this final weekend. Trump is in Pennsylvania trying to take advantage of ongoing Clinton scandals to change some minds. Clinton will end her day in Ohio, where she's hoping to shore up participation rates, which in some quarters appear to be lacking for her supporters.
Now it's time to take a look at some of the craziness at campuses across America. Students at the University of Redlands in California were blocked from holding a, quote, funeral for Halloween because college administrators thought such an event would cause emotional and psychological harm for students. In an email obtained by the College Fix, a university employee also said flyers for the event couldn't be distributed because they were not labeled satire. Students did publish an obituary for the holiday, which says, quote, Halloween is survived by other holidays, including Groundhog Day, Valentine's Day, and the 4th of July. Unfortunately, however, the same cannot be said for Thanksgiving, Columbus Day, and Christmas, all of which the flyers said are rapidly falling victim to political correctness, ruthless reign of terror. As has been documented in previous editions of Campus Craziness, Halloween is a regular target at American universities. Just this year, dozens of schools instituted guidelines that discourage students from wearing costumes deemed offensive. Some schools even have 24/7 hotlines for offended students. And students at Grand Valley State University in Michigan were threatened with arrest for handing out copies of the U.S. Constitution. University police officers approached the students and told them they were in violation of the school's solicitation policy. The website Campus Reform, which covers college news, published video of the incident online. Watch.
In order to do that, then you got to be approved with Office of Student Life. There's a state law that indicates for trespass, willfully remaining on property after being told to leave. Regardless of whether you're a student or not, we'll have to engage in that, in which case we'll have to fill out forms, and if you continue to stay here, then we'll need to arrest you.
The students complied with the officer's request and did not continue to hand out the Constitution. Grand Valley State University told Fox News that the students are welcome to hand out the Constitution, but must get approval from the school and do it in a pre-approved room on campus. Students at Harvard University, meanwhile, want to shut down an on-campus showing of the comic operetta The Mikado. Critics say the 19th century show perpetuates negative Japanese stereotypes. In an attempt to accommodate those concerns, the Harvard production is based on a reworked script and is set in a hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. As written, the show is set in a fictional town in Japan. The Harvard Crimson reports that the group even rewrote entire songs, replacing numbers such as Gentlemen of Japan with Gentlemen of the Strip. Those efforts did not satisfy critics, who say the reworked show fails to critically deal with race. If you have a Campus Craziness story, let us know. Email us and tell us all about it at campuscraziness@foxnews.com. We would appreciate hearing from you. One college is something of a safe space from these examples of college campus craziness is Hillsdale College in Michigan. For decades, Hillsdale has maintained its independence by refusing federal funds. Over time, Hillsdale has continued to use the same curriculum that it has for decades. It remains the only non-military academy in the United States, for example, that requires its students to take a course on the Constitution. To discuss the campus culture that our segments on craziness have illustrated, the president of Hillsdale College, Dr. Larry Arnn, joins us. Good evening, Dr. Arnn. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hey, Brett. Thank you. It's good to talk to you again.
So how did we get to a place in American education where passing out the Constitution on a college campus can get you in trouble with the police?
Well, the bureaucratic age is rules, right? So solicitation policy, when I heard you read that, I wondered if we had one at Hillsdale College, and I don't know, but I'd be astonished if we do. And remember, the kids who do these crazy things, they're mostly doing what they're being taught in class. And what are they taught in class? They're these identity groups, and the white one is the one that's not so good. And so their understanding, their ability to learn is supposed to be conditioned by what identity group they're members of, and they demand recognition for their groups. And that pits the campuses at war with each other. But gracious, I mean, if you're handing out copies of the Constitution, you wouldn't do anything about it unless it becomes a nuisance and people can't get to class, and then you just ask them to stop. Why, you know, and confined to a room? I don't know. We don't live like that here, and I'm proud to say it.
Well, do you think how much responsibility does the Department of Education exercise, or deserve, I should say, for what's going on these campuses now? I understand that because of the federal grant money, which comes in the form of scholarships and direct aid, I guess, to universities and colleges, that the department has a great deal of leverage. You, by virtue of the fact that you don't take any such money, escape that. But how much of an effect do you think that leverage is having?
Well, the rules that go along with taking the student aid, I happen to know because once a lawyer, we have a lawyer in D.C. whose job is to keep the government from giving us any money. And I asked him one time to send me Title IV of the Higher Education Act, and he replied, well, there's no use. You won't be able to read it. And I thought, you know, I'm not a dumb guy, and I almost went to law school. And I even told him my favorite joke, which is I decided to get an education instead. And he said, I can't read it. It's 400 or 500 pages long. We have experts who just read that, right? And so the controls are detailed and growing, and they carry very severe penalties for not obeying, complying with them. And of course, they increasingly have these identity groups who might get their feelings hurt that are to be protected. And the main point to make about this is relations on a college need to be civil and academic. The word college means partnership. It's something a bunch of people do together. They proceed by arguing and evidence and proof. And you've got to have scope for that, or nobody will learn, and people will be at odds with each other all the time. And I think that's the heart of the matter, and I think that's what's being busted up now.
And do you see any sign that there's any kind of resistance movement building against political correctness on campuses across the country?
In some notable examples, sure. I remember reading about the president of Ohio State breaking up one of those very disruptive. And remember, a college has a job. It takes a long time to learn. You get 4 years for an undergraduate degree. You need to spend the time doing that. And if these things disrupt the work of the college, it harms everybody. And I know the president of Ohio State last year, I read a story about it. But there are other examples, too, that are very good. And you know, my job and people's job who manage colleges is to keep the college working in line with the mission of the college and according to civil and academic standards.
Thank you, Dr. Arnn. Nice to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Tuesday cannot come fast enough. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. A poll by CBS News says 82% of Americans are disgusted, that's the word they use, disgusted with the presidential campaign. Just 13% are excited by it. Who are those people? Pretty much everyone I know can't wait till the whole thing's over. Yes, there's a lot at stake, but all the negativity has not been good for the country.
Hillary Clinton has engaged in far-reaching criminal conduct and in an equally far-reaching criminal cover-up, including the destruction of 33,000 emails after receiving, after. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if I did that? Oh, that alone is big problems, for which she got away with murder. Honestly, she has no right to be running.
Just a few days ago, Donald Trump was endorsed by the official newspaper of the Ku Klux Klan. They wrote their endorsement under the slogan of his campaign, "Make America Great Again." They said it's about preserving white identity, and they've placed their faith and hope in him.
Now, to be fair, Donald Trump has nothing to do with the Ku Klux Klan, and Hillary Clinton has not been charged with anything yet. Now, there is a tradition of nasty presidential campaigns in America going all the way back to John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson. But in this hyper-computer age where internet smears dominate the discourse, critical mass has now been reached. There's no question both candidates despise each other and that many Americans are angry about the state of their country. All of that negative emotion can be very destructive. Talking Points has tried to cover the campaigns in a fair way, and I believe we have succeeded. We do not cheap-shot the candidates, but we do not shy away from telling you the truth about them. My analysis of the recent Al Smith dinner here in New York City is a good example of that. For those of you who watch this program, you know what we believe, and that is that many far-left policies are damaging the country, and that the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton is embracing some of those policies. My problem with Mrs. Clinton is twofold. She's not candid in her assessment of herself, and she has veered sharply to the left. If Americans allow her to nominate a Supreme Court justice, things could get very intense for this country. On the other side, Donald Trump, who has been accessible to us, is not experienced in dealing with complicated geopolitical matters. If elected, he would have to rely heavily on advisors, and we do not know whether Mr. Trump would listen to them or not. So at this point, whoever is elected president will enter the office as the most unpopular victor in history. There's simply too much bitterness for it to evaporate in a matter of weeks. Talking Points respects sincerely held beliefs, even those that go against my conscience. But we are not seeing that kind of respect in this campaign, are we? Here's a vivid example. Last week, the Catholic Diocese of Rockville Center, where I live on Long Island, issued a very heartfelt letter on abortion. While the bishop did not take a political side, he clearly states that anyone who would support taking the life of a late-term baby for anything other than the life of the mother is participating in a grave injustice. The bishop and every other cleric in this country have a perfect right to state that position without being attacked or scorned. Hillary Clinton's position is that any late-term abortion should be acceptable if the mother's health is in some kind of jeopardy. But as we all know, health could mean anything, which is why there are laws against late-term abortion. And Mrs. Clinton's position is extreme, but has gone relatively unnoticed. Finally, we never endorse candidates here. We never tell you for whom to vote. We also understand that this campaign has been awful for the spirit of the nation. There's no question about it. And that's a memo.
I think every election cycle you hear people talking about if their candidate doesn't win, they're leaving.
Just like clockwork, every 4 to 8 years, many Americans say they're leaving the country if their vote isn't exactly heard on Election Day.
This year, we really see people are putting their money where their mouth is.
Searches for travel to Canada spiking 40% recently, according to Hotels.com. And after the most recent presidential debate, inquiries into getaways to Mexico up 107%.
London is really our top international destination, and particularly after Brexit, we saw a huge increase in demand there, and it's amazing how far your money goes. So Paris, Rome are another top European destinations for us. We're seeing good, strong demand to those places. And then you look at airfares, they're down with oil being cheap, and the whole travel package is actually quite a good value to go long haul right now.
If you are serious about fleeing the scene after the election, pay attention to your flight plan. A new survey shows Phoenix, Portland, San Diego, Salt Lake City, and Honolulu topping the list of best airports in the U.S. As for the worst,
unfortunately for New Yorkers, New York, LaGuardia, Newark, and JFK, they're overcrowded. The air traffic control system is over capacity, so even the slightest rain shower can throw things out of control in New York City. And also in the Great Lakes Midwest, Chicago, O'Hare, and Detroit are also coming in the rear in the survey.
And after all is said and done, JetBlue will be there to whisk you away. The airline's two-day Elect a Vacation flash sale begins on November the 9th. Flights beginning at just $34. In New York, Ashley Webster, Fox Business.
We're leading, just came out 2 minutes ago, 2 polls. We're leading in New Hampshire. We're sort of leading all over the place. It's a great honor.
There's Donald Trump talking about the polls, final days of the campaign. Jason Miller, Senior Communications Advisor for the Trump team, with us here in studio. And nice to see you. I'm going to put the map in motion, and we'll see if you agree or disagree or where, depending on where you go for votes. Okay, now here's the total, 270 of what you need. She's at 201, he's at 164. So let's just see right now about this blue wall for Hillary Clinton. It's Wisconsin, it's Michigan, it's Pennsylvania. If she goes there, she's at 247, Jason. And then is it Florida? That would give her the presidency. Is it Virginia in connection with maybe a Colorado? That would put her at 269. Does she pick up a Florida? That puts her easily over 270. The point is, she has a number of paths. And when you're at Trump Tower and you see this, you think about what?
Well, as does Mr. Trump, and I'm going to show you why, if you're a Trump supporter, why you're excited going into this final 4-day stretch. First of all, I'd point out that the red states were keeping red. So as we talk Arizona, as we talk Georgia.
Okay, so I'll tick those off as you talk about them. Okay, you're saying Arizona and Georgia.
Yes, we're going to keep the red states red. We've seen the numbers move in excellent direction. Early voting and absentees are looking very good. Mr. Trump's doing everything that he needs to in those states. So our primary pathways, we talk about how we're going to get there. Yeah. We talk about the key swing states of Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio.
All right, let me just tick those, okay? So Ohio, Florida, and North Carolina.
Yep.
And right now, Jason, you're at 253. You're still behind.
So the other state that I'd point to, and Mr. Trump really isn't getting enough credit as he should for this one, the state of Iowa, a state that's gone blue the last couple of cycles. But Mr. Trump, we're very confident. New polling out today showing that Mr. Trump is up by 3 points in Iowa. We feel very good.
Okay, now you're at 259.
The numbers.
Where does your argument go next?
The state of Nevada, where we're going to be back to this weekend. Early numbers look very good for Mr. Trump. We're ahead of the pace for where the ticket was 4 years ago. Internal polling, external polling, all looking good. Even when your rival networks had a poll out this week showing Mr. Trump ahead by 6 points in Nevada. Okay,
well, you know, Democrats are bragging about Clark County, okay? Well, they feel really good in Nevada, but okay, I'll give that to you, and now you're at 265. Where else do you go?
The state of Maine, which actually splits up their electoral votes based on the congressional district. We're confident that we're going to get the electoral vote coming out of Maine's 2nd congressional district.
Which is in the north.
Yep.
So largely rural.
So that would be one electoral.
So now you're at 266.
Now we're at 266. This is where the fun starts. And this is where, if you look at where Mr. Trump's campaign is now, as opposed to where we were 2 weeks ago, we're in very good shape and we're very optimistic. We talk about this blue wall. Let's first and foremost, let's go. Now we need to talk about one state. I think Mr. Trump will do well and power through and get a whole bunch of wins here. But what we need to show are our number of pathways, and this is where it's grown. Look at the state of New Hampshire, 4 electoral votes. We believe that yesterday 3 new polls.
Can I show you something? Yep. All right, New Hampshire. This is what we got overnight. Boston Globe. He leads by 0.4% in that in that poll. You put all the polls together, flip it one time, guys, for the real clear average in New Hampshire. Trump's up 1.5 points. That's the case you're making now, correct?
The blue wall is crumbling, and it starts right there in New Hampshire. We're going to see in the Eastern time zone these returns coming in. Mr. Trump will be in New Hampshire. I believe we're going to be there 3 more times today, and then 2 more times before the election. You talk about New Hampshire. That's one pathway. A couple other states that I'll point to. The state of Colorado. We show the race as being a dead heat. Colorado is now a mail-in only state, similar to Washington and the state
not entirely, but largely.
Almost entirely. You can still go show up on election day and turn yours in, so there is time for people to go and deliver.
Okay, let me just show our viewers in Colorado what we're seeing, okay? In Colorado, if this is right, not a whole lot of polling out of the Rocky Mountain State. 39 Clinton, 39 Trump. Put all the averages together for Colorado. Again, not a lot of polling, but she would have the edge based on what we're seeing so far. But just shy of 43%. Continue.
But it's tight. We're showing it a dead heat race. In the top 10 counties in the state, of 7 out of those 10 counties, the Republican ballots return are higher than the average for the others, for Democrats and for independents. So we're seeing the growth there, especially over the past 4 or 5 days, ever since her bombshell scandal last week. Colorado's really picked up for ballots returned. Let me stay out west for one moment. Quickly. One other state, the state of New Mexico. This is a state that has solidly been described as being blue. We show it as us being slightly ahead. I believe Mr. Trump is going to win the state of New Mexico, and this is one that Democrats, I think, fell asleep on. And don't just listen to me. Hillary Clinton is back on TV advertising in New Mexico because they're worried that they're going to lose it.
Okay, now we've got Democrats coming up in 30 minutes, okay, but you're talking Colorado, which would put you well over 270, okay, if that scenario plays out. But what they're going to argue in 30 minutes is that North Carolina is looking very good for them. Charlotte, Raleigh, if you lose North Carolina, that's just one state now, Jason, you're back below the mark, even if we're giving you the edge in every argument you're making right now.
Let me tell you why we're excited, because now that we have a number of different pathways. Look at the state of Pennsylvania, which is largely election day only voting. Mr. Trump will be there today. He'll be there 2 more times before the polls close on Tuesday. This is a state where, again, don't just listen to what we're saying. The fact that the Clintons are doing their election eve party with the Obamas, with everybody in Philadelphia, they're worried about the state of Pennsylvania. We believe that we can beat her in Pennsylvania on election day. And if we do that, even if your Democratic strategist coming on makes the case that maybe one of these states they can pick away, if Mr. Trump wins Pennsylvania, he's the president of the United States.
You're in Manchester, New Hampshire on Monday night, the site of the first primary victory, and she has chosen Philly. Jason, thanks for coming in today. From the Trump team, we'll see who's right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
All right, Martha.
Personal story segment tonight. Our pal Britt Hume has covered 11 presidential elections, so he has a pretty good feel for the process. Joining us now from Washington. So what direction, right now on this Friday evening, what direction is this thing going in? Can you sense something happening?
Well, you can sense for the past several days that there's been momentum toward Donald Trump, but when you look at the polling on this, Bill, it doesn't look like his numbers have moved up very much. What has happened is that a segment of Hillary Clinton's support has collapsed. That might recover over the weekend. I think sometimes there is real movement over the last weekend before an election. But that's the story right now, is that her support is fading. He's holding. She fades enough, he could win. Okay. It's all about turnout then. Remember 4 years ago, the Romney campaign thought they had it. Remember that? They thought they were going to win. The internal polling they had showed him up by 3, and then he disappeared. Then Romney disappeared. Didn't do any national interviews, and then Superstorm Sandy was in play, and that was taking a lot of the politics off the front page. And then he got thumped. Romney got thumped. Did that surprise you 4 years ago? Well, no, because I remember sitting on your show on election eve, and you asked me, who's going to win, and I said, I've heard the briefings from both camps, and each makes a persuasive case. And you remember what happened then, Bill, was that Romney was leading, or at least was right there, in all the national polling. But if you went state by state through the key states, the battleground states, he was not. And what was striking about it, Bill, was that the national polling was done by these big and well-known and well-recognized polling organizations, and a lot of the state polls were done by little colleges and polling organizations we didn't know much about. but they turned out to have it right. The national poll was off, and then it turned out on Election Day that it was off, too, that he won by more than the national polls had suggested he would in the popular vote.
But Trump's doing, and we're going to do this segment a little bit long, the same thing that Romney did. He's not appearing right now on national TV, which for him is a big departure. Now, in New Hampshire, the local poll up there, WBUR out of Boston, but that's a local poll, has Trump now either tied or winning by a little. That's a turn. Nevada, some local polls there have Trump ahead there. Arizona, Trump has surged ahead. So I'm not seeing a lot of Clinton turning around in states, but I am seeing some going over to Trump.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think basically that's the way it looks. Now, all these polls, you average them out, and they're only a couple of points either way.
Right.
And of course, you can't do a margin of error for an average of polls. But if you look at the polls themselves, the margins of error are such that, if it's plus or minus 2 or 3 or 4, that could mean a lot of different possible outcomes. Especially if voting blocks don't turn out, like African Americans. Everybody's keeping a very close eye on them. Hispanic Americans in certain states like Colorado. So what I see now is that if Trump manages to win Florida and Ohio and North Carolina, it's a long night. If he loses any of those 3, it's a short night. I think that's about right. And I think the one of the 3, the one where he has the greatest vulnerability is North Carolina, where the polling average, I think, shows Mrs. Clinton up a little bit. And North Carolina, of course, would be if she wins it, that's a flip, which is to say that that's a state that Mitt Romney won. And it would, we all know that because of the structure of the states and how they voted in recent elections, that of any Republican nominee, this one included, of course, has a steeper hill to climb. And Mr. Trump would have to basically run the table of all the states that that Romney won, plus the toss-up states, and even that wouldn't get him there. He'd have to pick off some states that like Obama
Iowa,
won.
But Iowa's
a good chance. He has a good chance in Iowa.
It's a doable scenario. Yep.
Yeah, it's quite possible.
You're right. North Carolina.
It's a long shot.
And that'll close fairly early on Tuesday night. That one will be the harbinger.
That's a good one to keep your eye on.
All right, Britt, thank you very much as always.
Brett Wallace is here from Fox News Sunday. Come on. Come on.
Boy, that took a little urging.
America's moderator. We played his walkout music. Should we tell him about the walkout music?
For the president?
You know how you like if you're going to go play...
No, oh, yes, right.
So our senior producer, is it okay in today's climate? Yeah. She calls him hot stuff.
She has been calling me hot stuff for about 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. Mrs. Soup was around then, too, so it's not like that. She's also married and has a child. Anyway, hot stuff from Donna Summer is what we play whenever you come into the studio.
Well, I'd never actually heard that before.
Well, because you're in Washington. When you're in Washington, we play a different song, but we can't talk about that. Tell us, if you win Florida, according to Trump's people, you win the presidency. Robbie Mook, Clinton's campaign manager, is sounding all kinds of confident down there, up 170,000 or something like that. They seem to think they're going to win Florida. If they do, will we call it early?
Well, we're not going to call it until somebody has amassed 270 electoral votes. If he wins Florida, he doesn't win the presidency.
I know.
But if he loses Florida, it's over.
It's over.
And we won't say that on election night. But there's no way. The 29 electoral votes, the polls close there at 8 o'clock at night. If he loses Florida, there's no way he gets to 270.
Yeah, you'd have to.
And I think he agrees that, and that's why he's spending so much time there.
Yeah, that's why he actually said that, or I wouldn't have made that leap without him. But they feel like they have the 4 battlegrounds there: Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New Hampshire.
Well, North Carolina.
North Carolina, that's what I meant. And
one of those end states.
They got to sweep that bunch.
They don't have to sweep Pennsylvania, but if they don't get Pennsylvania, they got to get another state to make up for it, like Michigan or Wisconsin. They have to win Florida, and the polls close there at 8. They have to win North Carolina, 15 electoral votes. The polls close there at 7:30, and they have to win Ohio, and the polls close there at 8. So if they don't win any, if they don't win one of those states, they might be able to make up some way they could conceivably put the math together, but it becomes highly unlikely.
This advantage in stumpers is noticeable. I mean, usually you would have former presidents and stuff, like he has the current president out there working for him. There's no Bushes out there for him, for Donald Trump. He doesn't really have the No, his family, but
the surrogate disadvantage or the disparity is enormous. I mean, it's basically Trump and Pence and the Trump family, and Hillary has got
Rudy and Newt and Chris Christie. He's not having a good day.
No, he's not having a good day. But, I mean, compared to the president and Michelle Obama and their ability to energize young people and the African-American vote, you've got William Jefferson Clinton. He's got some clout. Tim Kaine with Hispanics. No, there's no question that, but in the end, I don't know that it makes a huge difference because in the end, you're not going in and saying, well, you know, I really like that surrogate speech by Michelle Obama.
Jay-Z was great.
Yeah, that's right. You're gonna vote for the person you think should be the best president.
Yeah. Has Bruno Mars gone out for either one of them? Because Bruno Mars has that new song, 24K. We like it a lot.
This is the difference between you and me. I still like Uptown Funk.
I do too.
Well, I know, but I didn't even know there was a new song.
24K. It's shot outside the MGM on a private jet and then at the MGM. Actually, he rides jet skis in the Bellagio fountains. I've never seen that done before. Although Fran here says she and Patrizia did it, but that was late at night.
Were we talking about the election day?
Well, that's all we talk about.
I can understand. I mean, first of all, I've always thought you had maybe a little bit of attention deficit, and with that screen, it would be like my 6-year-old grandson. I mean, there's no way he could focus.
We had Bruno up there a little while ago dancing, riding the jet skis in the fountains. I'm now told I should talk to you about some of these polls before we have to go to the president.
Okay.
Call for polls, FS1, RCP, Florida. This is the Real Clear Politics average of the polls in Florida. Florida's always close, but he's up, what is it? He's up by 1.2. He is up over her by 1.2%.
Well, it's within the margin of error, and I will say that
Clinton's up. That's what I meant. Yeah, okay. It's in the margin.
The early vote, I mean, RCP one of the things that we got to get used to, and you probably are more used to it than I do, it used to be Election Day was the day that people go to the polls.
Yeah.
Election Day is the day that Americans stop going to the polls and voting. Robbie Mook, we just talked about him, Clinton's campaign manager, said he expects 40% of all American votes will have been cast before we get to Election Day. 40%. And right now, there's a huge Hispanic turnout in Florida, and not unreasonably, they think that's going heavily for Clinton. So you bank votes now, and then you can focus, particularly Clinton, who's got a great ground machine, you can focus on what's going to happen, you know, and getting the rest of the vote out and maybe lower propensity voters to go out on Election Day. It really is a big advantage.
North Carolina, she's up by 2 points. Again, this is the Real Clear Politics average, so we don't consider there to be a margin of error on this because it's the average of all. And we say this is what it is. And you're leading by 2 in North Carolina. That's not much a pad.
No, it's not much pad, but again, this is a must-have state for Trump and not a must-have state for Clinton.
Arizona next. All right, full screen 4. Trump up by exactly 4 points in Arizona.
Well, I think the last time that a Democrat won Arizona may have been Bill Clinton in 1996.
Right.
This is a reliably Republican red state. You know, there's some states, swing states, that Trump has to win. He's also got to hold serve, if you will, in reliably red states. Utah, Georgia, Arizona. He loses any of those, he's in a world of trouble.
He was in a little bit of trouble for a while to the independent candidate there, but Trump has surged in Utah since, and he has what appears to be a comfortable lead.
Right.
Arizona, though, so many more Hispanics living there, 30% more than the last time we voted for the presidency, 30% more.
No, the Hispanic voters could be the key in this election, and obviously Trump's comments starting from the day he announced were very striking and strident on when it came to Hispanics, and this could be payback time.
If they don't decide this one, they'll decide the next one.
No, that's right.
Because the demographics are flat changing. One more thing. RCP out of Pennsylvania. This is the Real Clear Politics average out of Pennsylvania. This would be one, if you're Trump and you could pick this off, it makes life a lot easier. But
20 electoral votes.
They talk about it every cycle, but Republicans have a hard time in Pennsylvania.
They've won it 6 straight elections, every time since 1992.
I meant Democrats have a hard time.
Yeah, the Democrats have won it 6 elections in a row. They've won, my favorite stat, 18 states, District of Columbia, have voted Democratic 6 elections in a row, 242 electoral votes. Both Clinton runs, both Bush runs, both Obama runs, voted Democrat. If she holds on to those states, she's only 28 electoral votes away from the presidency, which is why Trump has to take all of the swing states, has to hold serve on all the Republican states, and has to flip, whether it's Michigan or Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, has to flip a reliably blue state.
This Sunday, Fox News Sunday, will debut our brand new studio. We have 13 studios? 12 studios? We have a lot of studios. But this thing, it's the mother-loaded studio.
This is the Starship Enterprise. This is good, and we're going to show it all off. Everybody else thinks, well, no, we're going to be the ones to show it off. We're going to show it off. We're going to have Mike Pence on. We're going to have Joel Benenson, the chief strategist for the Clinton campaign, on. We'll have Karl Rove going through the numbers. We'll have the new studio. You'll come out of the musical humming the set.
Wow. I heard there's an elevator in there. There actually is an elevator.
Is that true?
Yes, and they have a scoreboard like it. Go to Obama, they're saying. He's saying something good. Let's go.
So since you have the fanciest studio, you want to move down there?
No, I like this.
No, you want that other one. You have set envy.
We're in a corner on the 12th floor. No one can find us. We love it here.
No, we're going to make you go to Studio F.
No, you go. I'll be here. I'll be on the Fox Broadcast Network that night.
And I'm going to be with you.
Yes, you will.
Yes.
That's exciting. In my lair.
So the numbers indicate that military veterans are lining up behind Donald Trump. Many admire his blunt talk about jumping into wars without a real plan and remain among his most loyal supporters. He made comment about with regard to that today. Watch this.
We're joined by a number of those admirals and generals and 7 Medal of Honor recipients right behind me. Oh, they're so much more brave than me. I wouldn't have done what they did. I'm brave in other ways. I'm brave. I'm financially brave. Big deal, right? He's a real brave.
Retired Marine Staff Sergeant Joey Jones, warrior liaison for bootcampaign.com and a former bomb technician. And Pete Hegseth is a veteran and Fox News contributor. First of all, gentlemen, thank you very much for your service. It's wonderful to have both of you with us today. Joey, let me go to you first. Did you find that comment offensive?
No, not at all. And at this point in the race, it's going to be tough to offend me. I mean, I was outraged at the comments, over Senator McCain. I've been outraged at things like we go up, we come down. It's not that big a deal. But honestly, it's misinformation. I don't think it's intentional. And at this point, you have to make a choice. I mean, you can choose to take the high road for a third-party candidate that won't get anywhere, or you can choose between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And if I have to make that choice, I'm going to choose Donald Trump, and I'm not going to waste my time getting offended by the little things.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers. Donald Trump leads Hillary Clinton by 19 points. Among veterans who are registered to vote, he trails her among voters across the board 2-3 points, depending on which numbers that you're looking at right here. And back in mid-October, 43% of veterans expressed a favorable view of him in a Gallup tracking poll, while 30% saw Mrs. Clinton positively. Pete, let me bring you in here. When I just listened to that soundbite, I read it before and then just saw it a moment ago. I thought in a weird way, I thought he was kind of being self-deprecating. How did you read it?
That's exactly how I read it. He said, these guys are all brave. They've done things I never had. I was financially brave. What does that mean? That's not real. I mean, the media's going to try to turn up whatever it can to make him look bad. Veterans know what he's saying. They know that he appreciates them, that he's fighting to fix the VA that underserves them, that he will unleash them and get rid of the political correctness that's poisoned our services, that he will untie the hands of our warfighters and rules of engagement. Veterans like Trump because Trump wants to win. Trump believes in America. He believes in crushing our enemies. He doesn't tiptoe politically. He's blunt about believing in America. That's something that in our core veterans resonate with, even if everything he says isn't perfect in every moment.
Governor Bill Richardson was also the target of a lot of that name calling, actually worse. And he told me on FBN it was time for him to move on.
Well, I popped up in a very insignificant way. John Podesta mentioned that Hillary Clinton should call me for an endorsement, and he referred to me as a needy Latino. And I've said to you and to many of your viewers, most politicians are needy. But that was, that's inconsequential. I think right now, these are the closing arguments. It sounds like the Republicans and Trump, they're bringing all this personal, this negative stuff because they have no vision.
Well, maybe
and their ground game
he
is
called
weak.
You a word that rhymes with stick. And whether people agree or disagree with you, Governor, you're a gentleman, you're a patriot, you've served your country well. I think that's mean.
Well, you're kind to say that, but no, that way it's somewhat. He kind of tempered it a bit.
No, he didn't.
But he was trying to convince her.
He said
was trying to
they should
convince
talk
her.
to you. They should calm you down. That better, I think, I'm paraphrasing, to have you on their side than against. You patched up your differences with the Clintons. They were mad at you in 2008 for supporting Barack Obama.
Right.
But you got over that. But I don't know. I mean, you've done more than enough to help out Hillary Clinton.
It was a political. That is a locker room political talk. But
yeah,
I
ain't
think
that a killer, right? Isn't that a killer? They criticize some of the language that Donald Trump uses, and they're saying of you a word that rhymes with stick.
And they got the objective.
It was stick.
She did call me.
And what did she say?
We patched things up. She said that I'm glad we're coming back together and let's work together, and I've done that.
Have you heard since the revelation of these emails from anyone in the campaign? Governor, we're sorry.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I have.
And
I have.
what did they say?
Get into that.
Called you?
But I think. Well, we were in touch, and because we're old friends, Neil.
Really?
He was chief of staff under
Governor,
Bill Clinton.
I have
Absolutely.
old friends.
I've known him for 30 years.
I never refer to my old friends that way. Well, sometimes.
Well, quietly, privately, I bet you do. But anyway.
So you're not, bygones are bygones. You're not going to make a big deal of this. Because here's what I get out of these, Governor. You know all the players far better than I. But I get a sense of a lot of condescending dismissiveness at the campaign, even Podesta for Hillary Clinton for a lot of people. It just gives me an icky feeling. It's not a Republican or Democratic feeling. It's just sort of like bad people feeling. What do you think?
Well, look, Neil, let's compare what Trump says about other people, about other politicians.
See, you're shifting. And you're not a shifter.
Women.
You're not a shifter.
No. Right. No, look. This is politics. This is what happens when campaigns, they're intensely pressurized. They get very personal. And I think we should stop focusing on WikiLeaks. Look at the issues.
Whoa.
What are the next 3 days?
We didn't have WikiLeaks. We wouldn't know about anything. I'm not endorsing the way it came to our attention, but it is out there. And when I hear people referring to you in this manner, I don't like it.
You know, we should ask, why is Russia interfering? They're responsible with Julian Assange for these WikiLeaks.
Well, they're a bunch of sticks.
Talk about that?
Don't even get me going. They're a bunch of sticks. All right, let's see what a gentleman he is. And he had been royally sticked.